Hello, I'm lovely. How are you? I would like to cover some more issues and also in this message send you some resources which are very important currently and resources that I recommend. I don't agree with every single one of their views, but that's literally actually impossible as you come to realize. But these people I'll recommend because they are, you know, very close to being spot on with just about every single solitary issue, and they've done great work, and they of good character and of good repute. Unlike me, I'm a bit of a scoundrel, but never mind. Nobody's perfect. Um, so one of the people that I'd like to put forward, and I hopefully can put some of the shared resources in and YouTube videos that they've done in the past or whatever in the comments, in the comment section or in the description of my video. One of them is Dr. Peter Hammond, who is a pastor who's basically been all through Africa, kind of like a modern Dr. Livingstone. He's done phenomenal work, which is kind of you know almost worthy of a Hollywood movie. Through places like the Sudan and Mozambique in the early days during the war when it was incredibly risky, you know, and serving our purposes phenomenally. He has also been a great source of intel, what I would call intel basically, and what actually happened and has transpired in South Africa and how, the champagne socialists have been either willfully or not willfully, but very deceived. And but most importantly, on his comments on the Christian church. And one of his videos, which comes to mind, for example, is how Marxists subvert churches. That's a great topic. It just says a hell of a lot just in the topic of what's actually transpired. He's a great fighter and defender for the unborn in the Frontline Fellowship, which is, he is the CEO of Frontline Fellowship, and he's stood up against abortion. And also, he's a phenomenal resource on history, especially World War II and, the British Empire, and how basically World War II lost the British Empire. They lost all their power. I don't know exactly how, but it was obviously engineered because we have a certain group of people behind many of these things. But he can put forward the historical facts of how, Uncle Joe, the communist dictator, was being supported by basically, the entire Western world to prop up this regime so that they could murder some more Christians. Another one going forward who I'd like to put out there is Andrew Carrington Hitchcock, British man, also as an author. He wrote a book called The Synagogue of Satan, which of course is biblically based, and he's basically expounded on a lot of crucial points to grasp, especially if you're a Christian, because you're actually obliged to adhere to truth. Whether you believe one way or another or think that you're a leftist Christian, which is obviously impossible. Quite often on his show, he has Paul English and Pastor Eli. I think they're very interesting to listen to as well. Pastor Eli does a lot to kind of put forward the idea of the Israelites and the 10 tribes of Israel, how they moved through from the northern kingdom of Israel and established our modern day Caucasian tribes across the planet, or especially Europe. So again, I mean, I don't agree with absolutely everything everyone says. I don't some of the issues I haven't figured out for myself. So, but what I'm doing is putting forward various people so that you can make up your own mind on various issues. But these people are at least basing their, they're honestly seeking the truth, and that's what really counts at the end of the day. Of course, it does. I mean, it should for any logical person who's got their mind intact. Another one who's very good is Devon Stack. He's got a channel called Blackpilled on YouTube. He puts forward great breakdowns of movies that Hollywood has presented. A lot of them are older films and kind of films that I grew up watching. Some of them were very good. I mean, he's shown how, these poisonous ideologies are basically inserted into the messages with great artistic production and creativity. He's also written a book which I've never read, called Day of the Rope, which is quite provocative in its title. Um, but yeah, so Devon Stack of Blackpilled. And then the famous David Duke, Dr. David Duke, mind you, who is the most maligned person on the planet. He was formerly part of the Ku Klux Klan. That's, you have to listen to his words, because after all, if we're intelligent human beings, we listen to every side of the story. But he's also very good in delving into the Jewish control of world events, currently of the USA. And, he also puts names to a lot of these people, um, people like Schiff and Engels. There's numerous characters involved. Obviously, he's spoken out about the Epstein and all his connections. So you can actually put together a proper, you know, cognitive picture of who these people actually are and look them up. And of course, then we have Dr. E. Michael Jones, who's a Catholic, strong Catholic man, old school. He was a professor in a Catholic girls' school. He, in the 60s and 70s, I think, or maybe even a bit later, and he kind of opened his eyes when he realized that he was being persecuted as a Catholic in a Catholic girls' school for being anti-abortion and anti-feminism, but mainly anti-abortion. So that's what he started, investigating things, and that's where he started to identify how the Catholic Church, in a lot of these institutions, Catholic institutions, sold out to the billionaires, that Dr. David Duke alludes to. So you can always link these things up, and there's more than one people that are coming to the same conclusions. It's pretty damn obvious. And then you can also corroborate it with, internet research of your own, with discernment, of course. So he also speaks about, the Jewish control of the pornography industry and how this is unleashed on societies, as a form of societal control. And it's very intelligent. It delves into the mechanism of how it works. And, so many guys have watched these things and just, they're now like doing everything in their power to stop using pornography because they're seeing it for what it is. And it took a wise man like that to actually point out how these things are linked, not just telling you, don't do this because it's bad. People are intelligent. They need to also investigate things. And he shows the mechanisms of this control, and it's quite eye-opening. Then, of course, there's Mark Collett, British. who's outspoken against, the Jewish control and also the immigration issue and the replacement that's going on in Britain. He's quite energetic and he's puts out a lot of resources and work. He's a hands-on sort of kind of guy, but also, he's got a channel which has quite a large viewership, and he's speaking about also the Muslim grooming scandals and those kinds of things. Another South African, which I'd like to put out there, is Willem Petzer. And he speaks out on the land expropriation. He's quite clued up on the Marxist agenda, and he speaks out on farmers in South Africa. The plight of the farmers in South Africa. So he is basically for the farmers in South Africa, of course, who do such phenomenal things for our country and who are the backbone of our country, and they deserve this in this time now, which I'll get to later on. Some very important developments taking place with land expropriation, which sounds very much like the Holodomor, in Soviet Russia. Maybe a Holodomor light, but it's not so light, because when you look at the way farmers are being brutally murdered, this is the same modus operandi as the Holodomor. It's quite phenomenal. But your champagne socialists and university educated in South Africa choose not to see this aspect. They're comfortable in their jobs and what. People don't like to be unpopular. Their champagne and social events and clubs and societies. Some female resources. One lady I like is Ann Coulter, American woman. She speaks out against immigration and the replacement of the Americans meaning the ethnic colonialists. They were pioneers, basically, not colonialists. They pioneered, they built the country. The whole thing is there because of the ethnic Europeans, the Irish, the British, and maybe a little bit of the Italians. But she's speaking out against the kind of immigration that they're having forced on them, and also against feminism. Then there's a British lady, Katie Hopkins, who's quite a bit of spicy, fiery lady, and quite a good sense of humor too. And she speaks out against the Muslim rape squads, she calls them. Just, puts it out there in very basic terms. And of course, the immigration. And then there's Posey Parker. I've recently been watching one or two of her videos, and speaking out on this gender, this transgender madness, and gender pronouns madness. And sometimes she starts punching quite hard in the right directions against these agendas. So that's who I recommend on the lists of resources, which should give you thousands of hours of things to watch. You can go back. There's nothing wrong with going back on the archives of those people and watching old videos and catching up. After all, most people spend 3 hours or so a night watching television. Switch the television off. Type in a YouTube search or a whatever search, and sift through it and actually learn a bit. Not very hard. It's a little bit harder than pushing the button on the remote for the TV, but not much harder, because how difficult is it's not like you're physically having to go and visit them. So don't be lazy. Get on the internet and check it out. Go back on this video, write down the names, and you have some great resources. I would like to just touch also on the immigration issue and clarify, you know, um, why people might be a little bit angry about what's going on, and the complexities and the intense emotional things that are involved in this. Basically to be replaced in your own land, and the manner in which it's been done, not by people that are very much like you, but by people that are so vastly different. It, it beggars belief. They've gone through the entire global population to seek out the most difficult people to get along with, it seems, and then plonk them in our country. And of course, this is very easy to do. I know it sounds very difficult. But when you're sitting, you know, in a chateau and you just simply say something and it happens because you have access to trillions, that is the way it's going to go. I mean, if anybody's ever sat in the traffic in rush hour and watched people trying to get to work and see how they fight, and the discipline people have when it comes to going to work, or sat in a tube and seen how they squeeze themselves and you squeeze yourself into this train, which is underground, 60 meters underground. It's claustrophobic, and then suddenly people have to forego all their fears of claustrophobia and whatever. And that's the determination levels, because people are beholden to money. So say what you want, think what you want. But, if you don't have that, you don't have food. So the issue of control is it's 100%. It's ironclad. This control, um, it's almost godlike. The god, not godlike, maybe you know more like the devil. But it's a very powerful control of people. It is the control of 99% of people. So they can replace people in their own lands and tomorrow come up with some arbitrary law about racism. Now you can be arrested for racism. This new made up crime by Trotsky, and it's been used to phenomenal effect to basically cow everybody into daring to speak out. Um, Also, the higher levels of support that immigrants receive is also like, when you see these people are living in a flat, they they seem to be driving around London in V8s and very nice vehicles, um, which also kind of makes a mockery of the whole green agenda because the Greenies are always pro-immigration, which is, that just goes to prove their absolute hypocrite mindset. I don't know how it actually works. I don't know how they justify their, do they see themselves? And the kind of immigration. I mean, they promise. Well, they tell them the British they must take on 50,000 Syrians, and Americans must take on 50,000 Syrians, and everybody objects to it. And then they get something even worse. They get 5 million Somalians, and I say this because I mean, wasn't that the movie Black Hawk Down? I mean, I'd never seen a Somalian before in a Western country ever. And that movie it was quite eye opening. I mean, how there's hordes and swarms of people just swarm these very well armed, well trained soldiers, and just the sheer numbers, you know, actually managed to kill some of these soldiers. Although the soldiers, obviously took many of them with them, and most of the soldiers got out alive. So it's a bit of a Hollywood hero story. But funny enough, these are the people that they selected to pump into the Western countries. I mean, you can't believe how many Somalians there are in Europe. So when you see Syrians, don't even count on it being Syrians coming into your country. Same if they had a war with Iran. You wouldn't get the Iranians after the fallout, which Iran is not an enemy of ours at all, but we're being told that they are. Anyway, you would get Sudanese, you'd get Somalians, and you'd get Congolese, and you know, as far removed from your own nation as can be humanly possible. Because I think they fear that too many Iranians would kind of look like us, and that just can't be, and kind of fit in and possibly become Christian, and this just can't be allowed. Um, Also, the they are masters of basically accusing us, and again, I'm using this term us, being the Caucasian group of Christians on this planet. I say Christians because a lot of them are saying, well, these days are saying they're atheists, but they actually were baptized and kind of celebrate Christmas, and they're of that descendancy. And it also proves that the religious beliefs, as people say that you may not believe if you're an atheist in the devil, but he believes in you. And this is a targeted group, and I feel that the Caucasians are targeted because of that, not because of their Christianity, although that adds an extra target on your head if you are. Um, this is a kind of a battle of the two seeds. This seed of I don't know what, let's say Esau and Jacob or whatever, the seed of Satan and the seed of God, and the woman representing the church. But I mean, even Esau was at least a full brother of Jacob. It wasn't like he was so far removed. But be that as it may, whatever the biblical significances of these things are, look in the reality. Let's live in the reality right now. I happen to believe that the biblical thing is so true that it's mind-boggling. But even without that, you can have a look for yourself at who's behind. If you were a Trump supporter, who's behind this impeachment process of Trump? It's names like Schiff and Engels, and I think every single one of them has some kind of Jewish name behind them, and especially in the kind of in the background, but that this is the funding of this whole thing. And then at the same time, he's doing everything in his power for Israel as a nation, which I don't know if he's doing that for appeasement. What I think they've done with him is he is surrounded. He is absolutely surrounded. I mean, and they're using the good cop, bad cop, to prod him into the directions that they want him to be prodded into. And now he has actually committed, basically, or could be linked to committing this war crime of blowing up this Iranian general. I mean, who ever heard of such a thing? Even Saddam Hussein was not blown up. There's certain things that a country can't just go and do. And America just nobody even knew who this guy was. Suddenly he's been blown up, and this is supposed to be a very, very good thing. They're claiming that they're terrorists, the Iranian regime are terrorists. And, actually that's funny because, most of the September 11, most of ISIS, they are Sunni Islam. Big difference. Iran are Persians. They're not Arab. Most of them are not Arab. They are Persians. They are the last of the Persians. But they want to pick on this nation. It's just like Assad. Assad doesn't come across as Arab, but of course he has to be an enemy. Whereas ISIS and the truly deadly terrorist groups are not actually of that group. In fact, they would be probably better off. Not that I don't think they should do anything to the Middle East. Leave the Middle East alone. What the hell are they doing there? But Saudi Arabia and these unholy alliances that they've got, you know, and it goes up to our highest levels. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough for us. It's not good enough for me. It shouldn't be good enough for you. Leave the Middle East alone. It's got nothing to do with us. There's, Iran could never attack American soil, never. And if there's a bombing on an American embassy in a Middle Eastern country, how do we know who did that? That's such a like a covert op type of you know thing to do, or a American warship that's in a Middle Eastern country docked in there harmlessly. Suddenly there's this attack. I mean, this is like pathetic reasons to ever buy into going into these wars and blowing up the Middle East. While your own borders, you've got ISIS walking into your country. Never mind, you're fighting ISIS, but are you allowing them into your country? Come on, people, think about it. And I've posed that question to a guy who was in the British Army, and he fought in Afghanistan. A great guy, very brave. He took, nearly got blown up by an RPG, shot a couple of times, but his armor was luckily where his armor was. Basically, he's like at the luck of the Irish. Anyway, he couldn't quite, he didn't really respond to that comment, but I just said if I was a soldier, I'd be enraged. I mean, you're fighting these guys, but you're letting them into the country or their family. There's something wrong here. There's something very, very wrong. And this needs to go out into mainstream, not hiding away in the YouTube video somewhere. We need to blast this lying press, out of the water with the truth of what's going on, and just the only thing we can really do is totally ignore them and start to reverse ridicule people who actually pay attention to what they're saying, because it is, the way that they've built up a picture for the whole world, built up of little lies and big lies. It's quite a masterclass. But I mean, that's what you get when you've got full control over all the flow of information in television, newspapers, etc., etc., and Hollywood films too, just to back it up, as if they didn't have enough control. But have a look at these resources. I'll try and put links into this video, and then give you some more information and more things to explore and more people to view. Ciao for now.